Hi, today we're going to talk about 8 tips for boosting emotional intelligence. There is no control of emotions. There is no mastering emotions. Emotions are an indicator, and when you fix whatever's wrong in your life, the indicator will change. The indicator will go from red back into whatever the normal indicator thing is. Same with emotions, okay? So we don't master emotions, we don't command emotions. If you want, you can try and master, try and command, but you'll just be bottling your emotions. You won't be very happy. You'll be if you've met some of these people, I used to work in sales, I used to meet some of these people, and they're very cheesy, kind of like, hi, I'm Mr. Successful, and they're really like very weird and odd. No, you want to be yourself, don't you? You don't want to be some carbon cutout. So that's what happens when you bottle emotions and you live a repressed lifestyle. I think we've all got enough of emotional repression at this stage, and if anything, the 20th century has told us, and now moving into the 21st century, we have to move away from being emotionally repressed to become who we really are. And I think if you look at history for the last 50 years, it's pointing that way, okay, away from emotional repression. Emotional repression this way, and freedom and liberty that way, and we're trying to go this way. So that's the first thing. Externally, of course, is being able to deal with people in like your relationships and your job, and not dominating people, listening to people, making people like you a bit because they think, oh, he's a very nice guy, I like the way he talks, that kind of thing, okay? So what are the 8 tips? Let's get stuck in. I'll give you 8 tips which will boost your emotional intelligence. Tip number 1. Tip number 1 is recognize your emotions, and I have diary writing here as well. So what I mean by that is, if you want, remember, you can't command your emotions, but you can work with your emotions. And if you want to work with your emotions, you need to know what they are. And a lot of people don't know what their emotions are. And the easiest way is to do some diary writing. I talk a lot about this in this channel, diary writing. And diary writing, it could be a physical diary, it could be an audio diary. When I was a young guy, we used to live in a duplex house, and I would stand on the landing upstairs. My parents would be downstairs watching TV, and I had all sorts of issues and problems. I just talked to myself. I mean, literally, kind of whispering to myself. I could hear it, maybe they couldn't, but I was speaking out my truth. And it's different to speak, if it's in my head, it's one thing. When I speak, it's a different thing. So this is learning to speak your truth, learn to talk about your emotions, learn to find out what your emotions are. Diary writing, just talking to yourself, without being a mad person, but just talking it out, talking about other people, making an audio, video, anything like this is great to just get it out there. And it's always different when you talk to somebody else about your emotions as well. If you ever have an interview, you know that you'll actually feel a bit emotional when you do interviews, because when somebody else asks you, when somebody queries you, it's different somehow. It makes you open up more. So the first thing we have to do is we have to recognize our emotions. That's the first part of emotional intelligence. You have to see what they are, and it can be hard. Some of the videos I've done, I've talked about reaction, response, amygdala hijacking. You can check them out in the playlist. And I think an interesting thing was this idea of amygdala hijack, that basically you have a part of your brain in the limbic system, and it can get into a negative thinking loop and so on. And when we look at that, people are triggered into emotional states. And the difficult thing is, often we don't know we're in an emotional state. We're actually going into an emotional state. Like, we might be very fearful, but we don't realize we're fearful. You might be very angry, but we don't really know we're angry. Okay, other people might know. We don't know we're angry, because we tend to think in society of anger, I must be shouting. I must be like Mr. Angry. I must be shouting at people. But you can be white hot angry and not shout at anybody. And, nervous, emotional, anxiety. There's so many different things. And often we're not aware initially. And a good exercise is, at the end of the day, is to look back over your day and recount your day. Because often it's like, days blur. I have an old Simpsons t-shirt where it has this thing of, without TV, it's hard to know when one day begins and another day ends. I thought it was 40 years ago. But I think there's actually a truth to it. Most people don't know what happened during the day. It's a blur. So when we look back over a day, just at night time before going to bed, recount what happened during the day. And you'll get some insight. Especially try and tune into what feelings that I have. And you can do that. You can situation, feeling. And initially, it'll be dead as a doornail. You won't know anything. But after a few weeks or a few months, you will start picking up on your feelings. And you might just have an idea of the feeling, or you might suddenly feel the feeling. Often, if we haven't tuned into our feelings before, we'll suddenly be, really angry, or really upset, or really anxious. And we might want to run away and go back to the way we were, but what's actually happening is the feeling was there, but you weren't aware of it. You were repressing it, and now you're becoming aware of it. So this in itself is a big deal. If you want to boost your emotional intelligence, you have to begin by becoming aware of your emotions, which could take months or even years to really get a hang of. And there's a lot of good resources out there, books and stuff you can read about emotions. But you need to start tuning in, and the easiest way is just become aware. So that's the first thing. And you really need to maybe look more into it in different ways. But that's the first point. Number 2 is increasing self-awareness, which I tie into that. And that's basically, again, diary writing. And just try and look at situations, especially when you get emotional, and think, what happened there? Just that reflectivity. Just what happened there? Just reflecting upon your situation. That's a great way of boosting yourself as well. Because if you keep reflecting, writing in your diary, thinking, I got emotional there, what happened there? You'll start tuning in over a period of months, okay? Let's look at number 3. Number 3 is broaden your perspectives. Broadening your perspectives, very interesting thing. Many years ago, I studied psychoanalysis, and we did some modules from anthropology. I thought it was very interesting. I got some really nice insights from anthropology, which are useful. Like, one of the things that they come across is that we basically have culture, acculturation, that we're born into a culture. We don't have to learn a culture. It's like we put a suit on. And when I put that suit on, I become part of that culture. So I just imbibe the culture automatically. I don't have to think about it. I don't have to work at it. I just automatically imbibe that culture on some level. And that's great, but it's very generic. It's not who you really are, okay? So, I come from North Dublin, suburbs in North Dublin City. And I'm not criticizing the people there, but I'm just saying that the average person there watches the telly. I don't know, they still watch, I suppose they do. They probably watch the internet through the TV these days. But the point is, you'd watch these drama TV shows, and you go to the bar was a big thing, going to the pub. And, Friday night and Saturday night were always hit the town. Sunday night was like, just take it easy. Holidays, 2 weeks in Mallorca, or, Spain, or maybe somewhere in Africa. You go on a hot holiday. A great meal out would be, fish and chips. A big meal out, a steak maybe. Like, it's very simple living, and you can live at that level if you want to, but there's more to life than that lifestyle. And I'm not criticizing the lifestyle, but I'm just saying that we can gain perspectives on life. We can read good books. We can travel to interesting destinations. We don't have to, on our holiday, go to, say, for example, when you go to Spain on holiday, you need to go to some beach with 50,000 other people living in apartments for a week, just sunning themselves and drinking beer and eating fish and chips. Is that your idea? Your burger and chips or steak and chips? Is that your ideal way to have a holiday? Could you go to Castellan or somewhere like that? Go somewhere interesting, somewhere different than Spain. Personally, I've never been to Spain, so I don't know, but you get the idea. I've been to Italy a few times, and that was an interesting place. So every country is amazing places. You just go to somewhere interesting. So you can, interesting books, watch interesting TV programs or YouTube channels, take interesting courses, talk to interesting people, join interesting clubs. Broaden your perspectives, because when you broaden your perspectives, you'll see the world differently, So if my background was a working class background, and anything kind of educational or, let's say higher level stuff was very expansive for me. But by the same token, say somebody came from a very posh background, it would be good for them to meet some working class people, to join some clubs or organizations where you have ordinary people, not just posh people. Because, I've had quite a few jobs over the years, and I've met lots of different people. And to be honest with you, the people who are the most isolated are very wealthy people. I found, although a lot of wealthy people I met are very nice, a lot of them live in a bubble, more so than most normal people. Most normal people actually mix. That means like working class, middle class. So it's good to broaden your perspectives. Wherever you come from, broaden your perspectives. That's a good one. Become aware of triggers. I was saying this thing, the amygdala hijacks. That's number 4. Become aware of triggers. It's hard, because initially you walk into a situation and you are not in control of that situation. So for example, you're in a job and your boss is bullying you, or you keep getting angry with somebody else in the workplace, or everybody else needs to know how to deal with meetings and office politics, you don't. Or in your family, some friend or or a loved one is dominating you, or you keep dominating them, or you keep fighting. I mean, there's so many just different variations. We all have our own little, things. And the thing is, you can be logical about it, and you can read books on it, you can do courses on it. But when you're in the experience in the moment, you just lose it momentarily for a few minutes or an hour or whatever, and you just end up like you're all playing parts. You're playing a part, the other person's playing a part, the other people are playing a part. And you don't fully understand what's happening, because human relationships, when I talk relationships, talking broadly about things like, in the office, in the family, romantic courses is there as well, with your kids, with your parents. I mean, all these sort of things, they're complex, and there's a big dynamic, and people mean well. They like I don't know how it is in other countries, but in Ireland, for example, the Christmas Day fight, everybody hangs around the house at Christmas, everybody goes to mom's house and has Christmas dinner and then has a big fight. Most people do anyway. What's all that about? Okay, so this sort of stuff, it's complex being a human being. And if we can pick up on the way in, as we're just heading into an emotional situation. Let's say, for example, just as an analogy, imagine you were in a fun park and you hop onto a ride and you're just about to put the clamp down, and then you realize it's a roller coaster and you are scared of heights. If you don't realize it, you're going on the roller coaster and you're going to be sick and terrified and all that. If you do realize that before you put the clamp thing down, you can just jump out and say, no, it's not for me. Now, maybe that's a weak analogy, but it's just to give you an idea that it's always a situation like this that, for example, you like going out for a drink with your pals, but a certain group of people are there and it's going to be wild, there can be lots of drinking and fighting, it always ends up in disaster. But you always end up going out with these guys and it always ends up in disaster. Well, just become aware, just as you're agreeing to, let's go, hold on a second, this is bullshit, I'm not going. That sort of thing, okay? So becoming aware when you're just going to enter into the not so good situation. Again, I give you a drinking example. You're 5 beers in and you're going to go for the 6th. You're 3 glasses of wine in, you're going to go to 4th. Okay? You're driving all day somewhere and you've been driving for 7 hours, you're tired, and your wife or your husband or your boyfriend, your family member says, why don't we just find a hotel and rest for the night? You go, argh! And you end up having one of these silly situations that you're now in the middle of nowhere and you got to keep driving till midnight or the next morning and you're falling asleep and it's dangerous. Why are you doing that? Okay, so there's a subtle thinking process and we have to pick up on it, and we do it by becoming more aware. And we do always make these mistakes, but we can become more aware. And again, diary writing, reflecting, looking back over my day will help, okay? Relaxation and meditation, I have them on my list. This is number 5. Meditation is really great. If you never meditate before, try relaxation. There's a lot of resources out there on relaxation. I have an audio there somewhere in my videos as well. And it's the beginning, because you cannot meditate without relaxation. So start relaxation, get into meditation. I do a great meditation called Heartfulness, so heartfulness.org. And it's an amazing spiritual meditation. But whatever meditation you want to do something. Meditative practice gets us to kind of create a pause in our life. When we can create little pauses in our life, we're getting off the merry-go-ride and we're stepping back and gaining perspective momentarily, okay? Don't buy into all the crap. You're going to be levitating, stuff like that. People always think they're going to meditate, and I've been meditating for 20 years. People think, oh my God, what can you do now? You'd be like some kind of Zen master or something. And people always have this ninja thing. So, you're not going to become a ninja meditating. And hell, ninjas aren't even ninjas. That's bullshit. I mean, you could probably beat up a ninja. It's all silly, because a ninja doesn't make you an invincible warrior. Ninja is just a training, and yeah, a real ninja should be pretty handy at fighting, but then a boxer could be really handy at fighting in the right situations. So even a ninja is not a ninja, I remember seeing a great film, Sylvester Stallone, Demolition Man. If you haven't seen it, watch it. It's about a despotic future, and there's a scene in it where he says that the Wild West wasn't even the Wild West. I mean, it's, so don't buy into all this bullshit. Don't buy into the bullshit that you take a yoga class, you're going to be like, super fit and healthy, or you take a meditation class and you're going to be like some Zen master. No, but it's a useful practice. And if you can't meditate, do something else. Chopping wood, doing gardening, going for a swim. All of these things can be good. Walking can be good, but also can be mental. It shouldn't be mental. Particularly do a repetitive exercise that has you concentrating on something. That's why I'd be more inclined to think of, anytime I do gardening, I don't like gardening, but I have to say it's quite meditative. I did a dishwashing job for a few days once. I found that quite meditative because you just literally, you can't think of anything else but dishes, and it just cleans the mind because you are not thinking, you cannot think about anything while cleaning hundreds of dishes, okay? You just got to clean those dishes. So anything repetitive will do the job, if not meditation. But either way, it creates a pause and that allows you to reflect more, okay? Because if your life is too chaotic, you can't even begin to reflect. And you can't begin to reflect, you cannot develop your emotional intelligence. What else we got a list? Live in the present moment. We should try and live in the present moment. Don't just act out all the time, which is really hard to do because we all do it. But at least try to live in the present moment. Try to become aware of what's happening now, right now, not last week's fight. I don't need to replay last week's fight with my wife or husband. What's happening now? Try that. Work some of the time, very hard. We should all be trying to do it. It is very hard to do, and we all fail. We just have to have a go at it. The power of recollection. If you get used to trying to live now, you could become aware of, for example, I'm having a real nice meal now. For example, many years ago, I went out on a kind of day trip with some people I knew, and we went to various towns in South Ireland, and we ended up in the evening in some small coastal village, and we had like this kind of fish meal. Everything was such a pleasant day, and just sitting there looking at the sea. And you know when you've had a day where you do something very different, you're out and about all day, and it's like you've cleaned your mind, you're in a different space, and just eating very tasty fish dinner, looking out at the sea. I remember even at that moment just thinking, wow, this is really nice. And I still remember that memory. It's 20 odd years ago. So we can, collect our happy memories and we can pull them out. Just like you'd pull out a photo from an album, say, "Ooh, that was a nice memory," okay? Why do we have photos and albums? Or we're supposed to have photos and albums. We pull them out, they remind us, they bring us into that space again. So when you try to become aware of the moment, especially like this is a good moment, okay? So actually, with bad moments, you need to desensitize yourself. It's going to pass, going to pass, going to pass. With good moments, you need to accentuate them and live in them more. And then recollect them now and again when you need them. You can go back and it's like, you can't go back and eat yesterday's dinner, but you can actually go back and eat yesterday's memories. So you can actually go back and retune into that vibration, because on some level you get into all this quantum physics. That moment is still there because time doesn't exist, because it's actually an illusion, because it's just the fourth dimension. If you're in the fifth or sixth dimension, time is everywhere, and therefore you can actually go back and enjoy yesterday. It's very strange and bizarre, but there you go. Last one, power of gratitude. So again, we had trying to live in the moment, trying to recollect good things especially. And also when you're working through issues, you can go back and recollect painful issues, but you have to be careful about that. That can be difficult and painful, but sometimes it's necessary to get, it's like if you had a problem with your plumbing, you have to take the shovel out, maybe you have to clean the shit out. The same thing with ourselves emotionally as well. So, but you have to do that sparingly. You have to also, not to go too much on the giving yourself a hard time. Power of gratitude is really, really powerful. Loads of studies to show that the power of gratitude prevents depression, cures depression, makes people happier, more successful. And basically, what I would say is every day, try and look back at the end of your day and find something to be grateful for, okay? An example I have in mind, I'm always quoting this, I might quote it elsewhere, was, I did not know this guy personally, but I used to work with some guys, and they had a guy who rode his bike very fast, 110 miles an hour, he hit a telephone box, and they were all telling me that when they went in to see him, they were quite amazed. He was smiling because he didn't break his back. He had lots of broken bones, but he would recover. He wasn't like diabolically injured. And he was just so happy to be alive, okay, because he thought he was going to die. That guy was demonstrating a great degree of gratitude, okay? So you have people, especially in today's society, of this weird situation. You got Afghanistan, they've now gone back to the 12th century. They're hanging people by lampposts, all sorts of crazy stuff, flying helicopters with dead bodies dangling out of them. I mean, it's like straight out of Apocalypse Now. Great movie, by the way. But straight out of Apocalypse Now. If you want to think what's the party like in Afghanistan, watch Apocalypse Now. It's like really messed up. So that's one reality. And if you want to, you look at that reality and then you look at people having arguments about, gender pronouns. What bullshit, okay? Who cares about your gender pronouns? There are people who do not have a meal today. There are people who do not have a toilet. And I'm not talking about 10 people. I'm talking about maybe a third of the population of the earth, okay? There's a lot of people who have a really tough time. And if you're in any kind of developed country, or even a not so developed country, but you're lucky enough to have 3 meals a day and a roof over your head, and you're able to tune into YouTube, which means you've got some kind of electronic device, you're doing pretty well, actually, okay? So we must appreciate our life. We must have gratitude. And gratitude, years ago, I studied some Chinese medicine. I used to actually practice in Chinese medicine at one stage. And one of the interesting things he had was that the heart, there's heat in the heart and there's coolness in the kidneys. So the job of the kidneys from a Chinese medical point of view is to cool the heart, okay? So our heart, our emotions get hot and we have to cool them down. And gratitude cools them down, because in life, you're going to have things like intimate people, like best friends, family members, lovers, letting you down. You're going to have accidents, sickness, job loss, fights with people, challenges. There's all sorts of things going to happen in your life, and they'll drive you, they'll burn you down, drive you down, they'll grind you down over a period of time. Hope is the mother of humanity. I remember seeing that in a movie somewhere along the way. And we need hope, and gratitude gives us hope. And I don't care if it's bullshit gratitude. Okay, I had a crash and my car is destroyed, but I'm still alive. Okay, it's not very good, but at least I'm alive. So gratitude, even if it's bullshit gratitude, it will keep you together in the tough times. And that's what I say to you. So summary of this video is how to boost emotional intelligence. Is really just observing yourself, learning to recollect yourself, and then learning to soften yourself. So you need to find out what emotions you have. You cannot control your emotions. You're not supposed to control your emotions. You cannot master your emotions. They're simply indicators. But as you learn about yourself, you can be more in tune of where you're at and speak your truth to other people. Okay. You also have to do with finding your voice with that as well. And also becoming aware that you're not the only person on the planet. That other people have emotions too, and I need to listen to other people. And I need to share my bit, they need to share their bit, and we need to compromise. And that's the essence of emotional intelligence, both inner emotional intelligence and outer emotional intelligence. And the last 3 things of trying to live in the moment, the power of recollection and gratitude will make you a happier, more emotionally competent person. And they make you a bigger person. Also, the broadening perspective on self is they make you a bigger person. And this will help you not just be happier internally, internal emotional intelligence, but external emotional intelligence, as in you'll know how to relate to people because you'll have more perspectives and more empathy for them because you've worn their shoes on some level. You've walked their walk. Okay, you understand where they're coming from, and that's where real emotional intelligence regarding others comes from. And by trying to live in the now, recollecting gratitude, we start to appreciate other people and we start to understand other people. And that's what emotional intelligence is about. So there's no, this is the 8 things you have to do. It's a whole big process, but if you start and you work on it, if you're not very good at emotional intelligence, in a year or 2, you'll be a lot better. And if you are good at emotional intelligence, you'll still be a lot better. And there's no end to emotional intelligence. And if we take emotional intelligence, I'll just finish with this. If we take emotional intelligence up to the highest level, we start heading into intuition and this kind of higher spiritual development of people who are intuitive beings, and they don't need to learn stuff, they just know stuff. And that's the higher level of emotional intelligence. That it's like, this idea of Carl Gustav Jung, of a collective unconscious, that we're all collectively connected on some level. And when you become super empathic, as in very high level emotional intelligence, you start developing intuition because you can kind of pick up what the other guy is thinking. He doesn't have to tell you, you just know. You just know what's happening in a certain situation. You don't know how, you just know. And that higher intuition comes from an empathy that has you connected with all the humanity. That's a real big thing. Okay, so there's some useful stuff I hope will help you. If you liked the video, please like and subscribe, and I'll talk to you next time.